Mistakes. They're the cost of admission for trying something new. And when I first started my food forest, I did so with two main goals in mind. One was to grow delicious food, and two was to save money. And if you've got champagne taste on a beer budget, then this video is for you, because today I'm going to share with you my 10 mistakes when starting my food forest that ended up costing me a ton. And I'm also going to offer some more effective solutions. It was March 2020, and like many people, I found myself suddenly having a lot of free time. I took this free time as an opportunity to finally grow my own food. At that time, I didn't know the first difference between topsoil, garden soil, and potting mix. I thought that topsoil was soil proclaiming that it's the best. And I didn't have a big budget at this time, so for my raised garden bed, I used upcycled cinder blocks. I noticed that the soil level was actually a little low, and I decided to head to the big box store and buy some more soil. While at the big box store, I also grabbed some starter plants of jalapenos, tomatoes, and hot peppers. And within a week, my jalapeno peppers and half of my eggplants were decimated by cutworms. That's when I learned what cutworms were and that they live in the soil, and that sparked an interest in soil health. The first mistake I made when starting my food forest was buying bagged soil. Bagged soil can be quite expensive, running between $4 to $6 per cubic foot for the cheap stuff and upwards to $28 for premium mixes. And at first, I justified the cost as the money you need to spend in order to grow your own organic food. But what really made me mad is when I would buy these organic soil mixes only to find that they were either made mostly of wood chips or contaminated with all kinds of bugs, and in some cases, herbicides. But here's the thing, soil doesn't have to be expensive. You just need to learn how to work with the soil you have, how to amend it to get the results that you want, and how to do that without breaking the bank. Lucky for you, I have a whole playlist on soil regeneration, and I'll link that at the end of this video. Mistake number 2 was buying transplants and starter plants. This one can cost you a lot of money, especially if all your starter plants end up getting decimated by pests like mine did. So a much more cost-effective option is learning how to start your own seeds, as well as how to propagate and clone your plants. And if you end up with more plants than you needed, you can always trade them with your friends and neighbors for something cool. Right here, we already have some starts going. This is a brandywine tomato. This is an herb I'm really excited about. It's papalo, also known as Bolivian cilantro. It's supposed to taste just like cilantro, but it's heat tolerant. Mistake number 3. Using chemical fertilizers to get my plants to grow faster. Fertilizers are very important. Your plants need to eat. Buying fertilizer at the store, while seems convenient, is actually more trouble than it's worth. Chemical-based fertilizers are basically steroids for your plants. And while they can cause rapid growth, they also suscept your plants to pest pressure. Have you ever noticed that right after you put down some fertilizer the next day, your plants are infested with aphids? That is an indication of an excess of nitrogen. What's the solution? Well, you can make your own fertilizer that's virtually free and, dare I say, eco-friendly. We can use weeds. Weeds have this amazing ability for extracting nutrients out of even the poorest soils. And then we can take those weeds and turn them into fertilizer. Not only that, you can use other nutrient-rich waste products. Their scraps can be turned into fermented fish fertilizer, excellent for tomatoes. Oyster shells are a mineral-rich and alkaline solution to your acidic soil problem. And my point is, you don't need to spend a lot of money on fertilizers. With a little know-how and some patience, you can make your own that will probably surpass the store-bought ones. Look at this guy. They look like aliens. And this guy brings me to mistake number 4, which was using organic pesticides. As gardeners, when we're first starting out and we see our lettuces, broccoli, and tomatoes being attacked by worms and pests, the first instinct is to obviously get rid of the pests. And there are many products on the market that promise to do just that, but how effective are they? And more importantly, are they safe? From my own experiences, I found out that I'm allergic to neem. Maybe I'm part insect. Another problem with using pesticides, even organic ones, is at best, they're completely ineffective, and at worst, they indiscriminately get rid of beneficial insects and pollinators. So what are the solutions? Instead of trying to figure out how can I get rid of all these pesky insects, focus on why are the insects choosing your plants to be eaten. It turns out that there are several factors that attract pests, one of them being an excess of nitrogen, and another one just having a stressed plant. When plants are happy, they actually develop compounds in them that make them taste terrible to pests. So what can you do to reduce the pest pressure on your plants? Focus on improving the health of your plants, making sure that they get everything that they need. Another thing you can do is plant plenty of pollinator-friendly plants. Research has found that having pollinators around, all that buzzing activity actually deters the pesky pests that want to eat your plants. And last thing is you can invite predatory insects, the ones that will eat the pests, and that will also help you reduce some of the pressure. And the best thing is, all of these things you can do are absolutely free. Mistake number 5, not planting enough diversity. A lot of times when we start out, we read the back of the seed packet that says each plant needs approximately 12 inches of space, and we think that that is the law. That is a lie propagated by Big Garden, whose goal is to sell you fertilizers, mulch, and pest control. In fact, dense plantings and interplanting with beneficial and companion plants is actually going to reduce your reliance on pesticides and mulching. It will also help your plants thrive. And a lot of times people say, well, companion planting doesn't work. I have proof right here. This is an eggplant that has been interplanted with lots of very happy marigolds. It's bearing fruit, it's setting flowers, it doesn't have any pests under the leaves. Now on this side we have another eggplant, no fruit, no flowers, no companion plants, and we just recently got rid of the aphids on it. So by planting more densely, not only will you save money, you will also have more food and better tasting food to eat. Mistake number 6 was relying on the back of the seed packets for information. Just because the back of a seed packet says that something can grow in your area, doesn't mean that it will. Here's the thing about hardiness zones. The only information a hardiness zone conveys is the amount of frost days in that zone. Did you know that San Francisco, Phoenix, and Central Florida are all in the same agricultural zone 9B? That's right, but those environments could not be more different. San Francisco has cool, humid summers, Phoenix has hot, arid summers, and Florida has hot, humid environment year-round. The back of a seed packet also doesn't take into consideration your soil type. And all of these factors come into play when it comes to growing a crop successfully. So what is the solution? What I found works for me best now is sourcing seeds locally, either through seed banks at local libraries, seed banks in communities, asking around neighbors and community gardens. And lastly, if I can't find anything locally, I will go online and I would look for seed sellers that are at least in the Florida region. Mistake number 7 was focusing too much on the annuals and ignoring perennials. Now, if you want a never-ending supply of food, perennials are your best bet because you plant them once and each year you're going to get a bigger and bigger harvest. When I first started my food forest, I was kind of put off by the expense of buying trees. When you're buying plants at a nursery, you're paying for time. So a plant in a 5-gallon pot versus a 55-gallon pot is going to cost more just because of the time that it took to grow it. Now, had I purchased my trees 5 years ago, I could have bought smaller trees, saved money that way, and by now they would already have been producing. Mistake number 8 was spraying baking soda, copper fungicide, and sulfur in order to get rid of powdery mildew. Like, in this climate, it is a losing battle, and your best solution is going to be to grow mildew-resistant varieties. Mistake number 9 is improper watering. And this one can cost you a lot, especially if you are on a city system. You see, Florida soil has this nasty habit of becoming hydrophobic if allowed to fully dry out, which means that no matter how much you soak it, the water just never penetrates to those deeper layers. Now, there are some ways around it. You can install a misting system, or a drip irrigation system is actually a lot more effective. However, reducing the amount of water you use might actually be the key to having an efficient garden. And you can do that by utilizing something like mulches. You can use straw, wood chips, and pine needles. And if your landscaping allows it, you can also look into rain garden designs. And back here, we actually have another way that we've reduced our irrigation costs. We have these recycled rain barrels. Here we have a trench that is currently filled with water, and we use this to redirect the water from our food forest, because otherwise it would get flooded, and it takes the water all the way around, and we use it to irrigate more thirsty plants like bananas, blueberries, and bamboo. And my last mistake was, can you guess what it was? It was stressing out too much. Stressing out over my blueberries that I spent all year tending to, one morning being devoured by hungry blue jays. It's the rage I felt when the strawberry that I've been waiting for all season to finally ripen, quickly being snapped up by a cardinal. I remember the disappointment I felt when I found out that my seedlings have been dug up by moles. And all of these setbacks made me feel like I failed so hard as a gardener. I thought maybe if I bought some bird netting or weed fabric or this one gadget or another, I would have been able to save those 5 blueberries and 1 very sad tomato. Because whenever we encounter a problem in the garden, there's always a solution to buy, a solution that's going to cost you a lot of money. But the truth is, you don't need weed fabric or the latest planters. What you need is patience and a shift in mindset. When I first started, I saw my garden through a lens of scarcity. Soil was really expensive, which meant that I could only grow a limited amount of plants. And after I changed my mindset and shifted into seeing abundance, hi, you are so tiny. Those piles of leaves on the side of the road were no longer piles of trash. They were leaf mold. Kitchen scraps became nutrient-rich pre-compost. The leaves from banana trees became mulch. And now this food forest not only feeds us humans, it also provides food and shelter to dozens of birds, squirrels, and even those pesky raccoons. So thank you for watching. This was a very vulnerable video to make because it's kind of difficult to admit your mistakes in front of an audience of people, but I feel like we're all friends here, and it's not like everyone's perfect. So if you're just starting out, I want you to congratulate yourself on taking the first step and get excited for the fruitful journey ahead. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're new, check out my website, sign up for my newsletter, foreverfoodforest.com, and I'll see you in the next one.